I was saying, y'all, it's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we have a lot of interesting behind-the-scenes information that came from the trade deadline the past couple of days. First of all, apparently the Washington Commanders did not even pursue Marshon Lattimore until the day of the trade. Also, the Washington Commanders tried to trade for a Patriots wide receiver. What does that mean with the fact that we didn't get him and our future outlook on the entire roster? Also, the media reacts to the Washington Commanders trade for Marshon Lattimore. We're going to talk about some of the compliments we got because we got to feel good. And then also, I'm going to update y'all on all of the Washington Commanders' current draft picks after the trade. It's insane what we have left after acquiring Marshon Lattimore. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release the informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned. I will be live streaming the upcoming Steelers game, of course. Again, I'm trying to come out with like 2-3 videos a day. I think today I finally will be free enough to start to get some film sessions done for y'all, my channel members, my exclusive film sessions only for y'all to see. So make sure you stay tuned. Without further ado, let's go and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first of all, I have been working on not saying Marshawn Lynch. I've been rehearsing. I literally just sat down and was like, Marshon Lattimore. I'm sorry, man. I've been struggling. Marshawn Lynch, one of my favorite players that of ever, like easily in my top 5, top 10 players of all time. So it's been really difficult for me to just say Marshon Lattimore. I'm about to just say Lattimore, forget the Marshon, so I don't even chance slipping up. I hope I can finish this entire video without messing that up because I've been doing it for several videos now. So I apologize for that. But now let's get into the fact that Ben Standig said on his podcast that the Commanders did not even get heavily involved into trading for cornerback Marshon Lattimore until the day that we traded for him. Until literally Tuesday, trade deadline. The deadline is at 4 p.m. on Tuesday. We didn't even seriously get into the trade until that day. I mean, how did Adam Peters even find a way to pull this off, man? I mean, if that source is true, then that is crazy. Like, that makes this even more impressive because I've heard reports that like the Chiefs were trying to get him for days, maybe even for weeks, like really trying to do whatever it takes to get Marshon Lattimore, and for us to just swoop in at the last second to get him is insane. Now, Adam Peters, man, he deserves a lot of credit for the way that he builds relationships, the way he networks and things like that, because he already had like a previous relationship with the Saints with how we traded John Ridgeway to them. And then somebody, I forgot where I saw it, but it was somewhere like on Twitter, somebody pointed out the fact that like he had a healthy relationship with the Saints front office guys back at like the combine of the Senior Bowl or something like that. He was just chopping it up with them, talking to them, and just, you know, being a really good person around them. And that's probably what led to our ability to make this trade go through. So Adam Peters put in the groundwork and developed those relationships months ago so that when the time came, he would be ready to go for it. That's just insane stuff again. But it does make me question, why weren't we trying seriously to get Marshon Lattimore days or even weeks ago? Like, honestly. But hey, shouts out to Adam Peters for pulling up with the buzzer beater half-court shot, man. That's our GM right there. Again, there are reports that the Chiefs were trying to get him for days, even weeks, and for us to just swoop in and take it seriously just for one day, the day of the 4 p.m. Eastern time trade deadline, to swoop in and get him, especially for what we got him for, is absolutely insane. This was definitely a buyer's market, just to let y'all know. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but no player was traded for a first round pick. This is going to be the first time that, I mean, of course, we still have free agency and all of that type of stuff before the draft happens in April, but this is going to be the first time that we finish an NFL season with every single team in the NFL having their own first round picks in like 20 plus years or something crazy. So this was just a buyer's market. If you're a team that's contending and you're trying to buy great players, this was the perfect time to do it because the value for trading for great players was lower than normal. You had to give up less than you normally would to acquire a great player to add to your contending team this time around compared to other previous years. So this was the perfect storm for the Washington Commanders to finally be great and be buyers, because being sellers right now sucked. Like, it's just, you're trading away elite players that you spent first round picks on, gave them big contracts for third round picks at best this time around. So hey, shouts out to Adam Peters and for the great timing, for the great work, all of that. He deserves a big time salute for even just pulling off the trade. But then when we find out all of these background details on the Marshon Lattimore trade, makes it even more insane. Also, Adam Peters even said in his press conference yesterday that they did not know cornerback Marshon Lattimore would even be available, but they had done their homework on him. He said, quote, "If you wait until you know, then you'll usually be too late," unquote. I like that quote. I hope that they move forward with that in the back of their mind as like a mantra for the rest of the decisions that they've ever made. They're doing homework ahead of time. They're aware, they're thinking steps ahead. They're playing chess, not checkers. I really appreciate that. Adam Peters also said that his staff was canvassing the entire league, quote, for weeks and weeks, unquote, to see what was available. And then I'm pretty sure they were aware of Marshon Lattimore at some point, and maybe like they were in on it days in, but they weren't like, they were calling days in, but like maybe they didn't take it seriously till Tuesday, the way it seems like it's worded. But hey, at least we made sure our front office, our coaching staff, just as a whole, was just canvassing and combing through the entire NFL to see what is out there. We weren't just targeting like a select few guys. They were making sure they casted their net really big, and then they were able to bring in the big dog, the big fish, Marshon Lattimore. Also, just to remind y'all, shouts out to Jake Russell for this update. The numbers are a little bit different than what I saw, but either way, the logic still stands. He said, quote, "Washington at 7-2 takes on the remainder of his $1.21 million salary this season," but I thought it was like we only have to really pay him like $600,000 or something like that. Either way, Lattimore's final 2 years of his deal include salaries of $16 million and $16.5 million. Again, my numbers show $18 million and like $18.5 or something like that. But either way, that's fairly inconsequential, because the most important part is that neither of those 2 years, 2025, $18 million, 2026, $16.5 million, are not guaranteed. Neither of those deals are guaranteed. So Washington could essentially sign him to a new, more cap-friendly deal if they really wanted to extend him even longer right now if they wanted to. But that's something we'll probably explore in the offseason. You know, let's see how he fits with this team. Even though we assume he'll be a great player, you know, why put yourself in the hole for several years? Why not just wait until the offseason and at least give this guy the second half of this season to see if he truly lives up to what we expected? I mean, you just never know. Knocking on wood, anything can happen. You just why not wait till the free agency is my point. Wait till, you know, after the season ends, we see what this free trial looks like, and then we go ahead and subscribe to the Marshon Lattimore experience long term. Now let's move on to media reactions and grades for the Lattimore trade. First of all, Urban Magic Johnson even took time out of his day to retweet how the Commanders traded for Marshon Lattimore, and he tweeted, "This is exciting news for our team and our fans. Congratulations to Commanders General Manager Adam Peters on a great move acquiring Marshon Lattimore. He's one of the top corners in the league and will help strengthen our defense." Shouts out to Marshon Lattimore. Congratulations for your Dodgers and all of that. And so he's just eating right now with his Commanders looking like they're about to be the next ones to potentially win a championship. Let's get it. Then you have the 33rd team, and they actually gave A's on both sides. Well, the Saints, they gave an A-, and they gave us a straight up A for the Marshon Lattimore trade. A lot of people felt like this was a mutually beneficial trade. I don't really see too many people saying that like one side just absolutely got over on the other. Everybody kind of agrees that this makes a lot of sense. Like even Walter Football, he gave us an A and he gave the Saints an A. He felt like we both equally benefited from this at the same exact level. He said as much as the Redskins loved Jaden Daniels heading into the season, they likely didn't imagine being in position to be a major buyer at the trade deadline. After all, they're just one remove from selling Montez Sweat to the Bears. We got rid of Chase Young, everybody. They're 7-2, however, and they're in position to make a deep run into the playoffs. They just needed to fix their problematic secondary, which they did with this trade. Secondary issues solved. Love it. Marshon Lattimore is injury prone, but he's one of the top cornerbacks in the NFL when healthy. He's well worth his price tag. Thank you. He'll improve Washington's defense enough to make them a major force come January. I love this trade for the Redskins, but he also said that I also like the Saints offloading Lattimore to obtain quality draft capital? Are they finally beginning to realize that they have to blow this whole thing up rather than constantly kicking the can down the road? Their fans can only hope so. So that's another person that feels like we both mutually benefited from this. Even Yahoo Sports, they gave us an A, they gave the Saints a B. And then they said the Commanders were already flying high with a 7-2 record that had them sitting atop the NFC East. That's because Jaden Daniels is the certain offensive rookie of the year and a bona fide MVP candidate. I agree. While Dan Quinn has all of his ducks in a row and for one of the better coach teams in the NFL, he should be leading for head coach of the year as well, in my opinion. But continuing with the article, but for as successful as the Washington season has been to this date, it had glaring holes on defense. Through 9 games per RBDSM.com, Washington is just 24th in defensive expected points added per play. According to FTN, it's 26th in defensive DVOA. Those are decidedly mediocre statistics describing a way too porous defense. A former Pro Bowler in Lattimore won't sand over all of the Commanders' defensive issues by himself. After all, this is a team game. And Washington still needs more pieces up front, but Lattimore is a bona fide star cornerback and is just 28 years old. Getting him for a few mid-round draft selections is a coup for a team that is suddenly a strong NFC contender. The price is worth it. I love to hear it, man. Then shouts out to Sporting News. They gave the Saints an A, but they gave us an A+. They said the Commanders couldn't contend for bigger prizes in the NFC, with cornerback being the biggest liability in Dan Quinn's defense. Between Benjamin St-Juste, Mike Sanderson, Emmanuel Forbes, and Noah Igbenogany, they didn't even acknowledge Michael Davis's existence. They were vulnerable outside and inside. Now they get a savvy playmaker who can serve as another leader for Quinn's new look attack. Washington needed to be aggressive with a shot at the Super Bowl because of rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels leading a big offensive turnaround. Lattimore helps them better battle teams with dangerous downfield wide receivers down the stretch. It's another shrewd move by Adam Peters and his methodical march to run away with Sporting News' NFL Executive of the Year award. So shouts out to Sporting News for already casting their vote for Adam Peters being NFL Executive of the Year. I feel like he'll probably win this multiple times. Then you have CBS Sports. I'm not going to dive into what they said because it's fairly extensive and we've already did deep dives into what other people have said, but they gave the Saints a B. Pretty good. They gave us an A-. Then you have DKNetwork.com. They gave us an A grade for this trade. They said the Saints traded cornerback Marshon Lattimore in a 5th round pick to the Commanders for 3 picks in the 2025 draft, 3rd, 4th, and a 6th. This move commences the needed demolition of the New Orleans roster, which has been in cap purgatory for too long. Lattimore is a 28-year-old, 4-time Pro Bowler and former Defensive Rookie of the Year, but is currently dealing with a hamstring injury. But still, this is a great move for the Commanders, whose Super Bowl window, dare I say, is now open. Washington has had an exploitable secondary since week 1, allowing the 21st most yards per pass attempt in the league, but only the 5th most passing yards per game, which is actually pretty interesting. That's just because teams can run against us. So don't look at that 5th most passing yards per game and just assume our secondary has been locked down. No, that's just because if they can run the ball, why pass it? And they've successfully been able to run the ball against us, especially these last few weeks, starting with the Ravens game. But cornerback Benjamin St-Juste has been targeted 25% of the time and is allowing 1.9 yards per coverage snap. That's the second most in the NFL per NFL Next Gen stats, and hasn't been able to tackle effectively either. Lattimore, on the other hand, has 68 pass breakups since his rookie season in 2017, which is the 3rd most in the NFL over that span. Adding Lattimore solidifies this team wants to round out their roster while also holding on to a fair amount of draft picks to continue building for the next few years. And we're gonna, again, later on in this video, we're gonna dive into how many draft picks we still have. I'm really excited about that. Then USA Today gave the Saints a B+, also gave us a B+. We're not going to necessarily dive into what they said, but we'll take it. And then you have Sports Illustrated. They have an article by Connor Orr saying the 2024 NFL trade deadline winners and losers. Of course, in the winner category, you have Marshon Lattimore. Not even just the Commanders, but Marshon Lattimore himself. And if you want to go read that on Sports Illustrated, you can. I don't want to spend too much time on it. But basically, long story short, they're talking about how Marshon Lattimore is going from a terrible rebuilding, at least hoping to rebuild franchise, to now a potential Super Bowl contender in the Washington Commanders, where everybody wants to be. And remember, remember that Adam Schefter, right before the Marshon Lattimore trade, said that players were telling their agents that they wanted to be traded to the Commanders, and I talked about this in my previous video, but as soon as we traded for Marshon Lattimore, DJ Reed tweeted a sad emoji face, and that was like a whole 2.5 hours before the trade deadline even ended, so you could tell he was reacting to the fact that he was not traded and Marshon Lattimore was traded to the Washington Commanders, because I guess he was one of those players that told his agent, I want to go to the Commanders. So right now, this is everybody trying to jump aboard the ship before we take off, trying to get aboard a rocket ship that's headed to the Super Bowl, that's headed to at least Super Bowl contention before we take off and leave you behind. Everybody's trying to jump ship from their current teams. I know DJ Reed was sad over there with the Jets because they're in buy mode, but they're not looking like a buyer team. They're not successfully, they're not winning, they're not doing any of that. Whereas the Saints are just straight up losing. They started off 2-0 and they just been losing. Marshon Lattimore is definitely happy to abandon that ship. Then you had Adam Schefter. He pointed out the fact, he tweeted this himself, in just over a year, the Commanders have gotten a new owner in Josh Harris, a new general manager in Adam Peters, a new head coach in Dan Quinn, and a franchise quarterback in Jaden Daniels. They started the season 7-2, lead the NFC East, and are buyers at the trade deadline, acquiring Pro Bowl cornerback Marshon Lattimore. Thank you for taking it back and realizing how far we've come. And then shouts out to Monte Te'o. I know y'all remember that name. He was on the Grant Paulson and Danny show, and he was talking about his former teammate Marshon Lattimore. He said, quote, he does the most challenging and most complicated things about the cornerback position very well. He plays man-to-man very well. Knowing what Dan Quinn has liked to do over the years, that aligns perfectly with Marshon Lattimore, unquote. And then he also said this about him as well, quote, Marshon is a giant slayer. He always wants to go against the best. Everybody's seen the battles against Mike Evans, but the thing about Marshon is that he was like that in practice with Mike Thomas. So if your name starts with Mike, if your first name is Mike in any way, Marshon Lattimore is on your head, no matter what. But I mean, I'm just joking. He's on anybody's head that's an alpha receiver because he's an alpha corner. He wants that smoke. Monte Te'o also said that he is the all-time, quote, take no crap from nobody, never gonna back down, unquote, type of guy. I love it. That is perfect. That's literally what Joe Wood Jr. and Dan Quinn have been screaming to get out of their players this season, both defensively and offensively and special teams. They want this entire team to have that identity. So it's not even just Marshon Lattimore physically and what he could do for you on the field, but also mentality wise, he is perfect for what we want. Then you have Darren Orlovsky. He had a whole entire segment on ESPN. The clip is only 1 minute long on Twitter, but he also talked about it a little bit longer than that on the actual ESPN segment that he had on TV. He said that he thinks Marshon Lattimore will help the Commanders secure the NFC East, and that will pretty much solidify our hold on the division. He said, quote, you don't make this move unless you legitimately think that you can make a deep playoff run, unquote. Not just a regular playoff run, but a deep one where you're trying to go for the Super Bowl. This is not, oh, we're just trying to win this division or make it to the wild card, maybe win a game or just be happy with making them. No, you're trying to win it all when you make a move like this. But at the same time, Marshon Lattimore is only 28 years old, so you're also building towards the future. This was the perfect move, but I said that days before the move even happened. It just made too much sense. I don't even feel like I deserve like a bunch of credit like I told you so. I just felt like this was so obvious. Like, why wouldn't we make this move? With the way, with the current situation that the Saints were in, as deep in the cap space as they were, as deep in the negative as they were, and then the fact that we needed a corner, the fact that they needed draft picks to rebuild because they will not have cap space going into 2025. So the only way to possibly even try to improve their team was with more draft picks. So it makes a lot of sense that we gave them like multiple, even though there were mid and late rounders, we gave them multiple in return. I mean, it made so much sense. It was such a perfect fit for all three parties involved: Marshon Lattimore, the Commanders, and the Saints. So again, I don't even feel like I deserve any like ridiculous credit like Rico's a prophet or anything like that. This move just made too much sense, and I'm just so happy that it actually got done. Every time I feel like a move makes too much sense, Adam Peters has made it, so I'm very happy about that. Now, shouts out to Al Galdi. He brings up another good point. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn in less than 10 months have transformed the Commanders from a rebuilding, recalibrating, remember that's the word that Dan Quinn always chose to use, team to one so good that it is year one of a rebuild and was a major buyer at the trade deadline. A spectacular turnaround about which enough good things cannot be said. I completely agree. Then you even had Kay Adams, who had Thomas Dimitrov. I hope that's how you pronounce that last name. But he joined her show, and Thomas was basically screaming and making his case for why Adam Peters should already be the pick for NFL Executive of the Year. It should be on lock at this point. There should be no chance of anybody else even being able to compete. It should be a distant first from everybody else, like just in his own separate tier. And then Kay Adams even said, like, she quote tweeted it later on and said, vote Adams as well. But Commanders fans, she tweeted, lean in because you're going to want to hear this. Who is Thomas's midseason pick for NFL Executive of the Year? And it's an entire 1 minute and 24-second clip of him explaining why Adam Peters is the best executive, general manager, whatever you want to consider him, front office guy, personnel in the entire NFL right now. But it doesn't just stop there. You also have 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel, and he has his own podcast, and he even talked about the Marshon Lattimore trade, and he had Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver from the Jets, and they were both talking about, like, man, that Commanders team, you may want to go check that out. It's via Bleacher Report. They make sure you go check out that clip, because as a Commanders fan, you're going to be really happy to hear players from other successful franchises like the 49ers, who was just in the Super Bowl last year, saying, like, man, those Commanders are serious right now. Like he said, quote, a healthy Marshon Lattimore, like, that's tough. They're already 7-2. They hooping right now, unquote. And he was basically saying that it's unfair because that team was already really good. And basically, we already caught the eye of the 49ers. Like, that's a team we got to worry about come the playoffs. But then adding Marshon Lattimore makes us even that much better and that much scarier. So shouts out to Deebo Samuel, Garrett Wilson, and all of those people for knowing and acknowledging the fact that we are doing what we're supposed to do. And we are a team that you need to worry about. But also, I know a lot of y'all are curious, after the Marshon Lattimore trade, what draft picks do we have? Well, you'll be surprised to realize that we still have a lot of really high tier draft picks. We still have our first rounder, which if the draft were tomorrow would be 29th, because we're just that good right now. Shouts out to us. And then our second rounder is a 62nd overall. Our third rounder is a 72nd overall, because it's from the Miami Dolphins that we got from the Jahan Dotson trade with the Eagles. So we gave, just to remind y'all, we gave the Saints the lesser of the 2 third-round picks. We kept the better one, the higher one from the Dolphins. As long as they keep on losing, that draft pick is just going to keep going higher and higher and higher. Then we do not have a 4th rounder, but we do have a 5th rounder, 144th overall. That's from New Orleans. So as long as they keep on losing, that draft pick is going to keep getting higher and higher. Then we have our own 6th rounder, 206. Then we have a 7th rounder from Atlanta, that's 237th, and a 7th rounder from Philly, which is 241st. And just to give you the update, just to take a step back, that means we have 3 top 270 picks in the draft right now after acquiring Marshon Lattimore. That is absolutely insane. Also, shouts out to Adam Peters, because he said the surplus of draft picks that Washington acquired this offseason, you know, last season, even just from Montez Sweat and Chase Young, and then this offseason under them with trading away John Ridgeway and Jahan Dotson, he said that that's what made the team more comfortable with giving up some more capital for Lattimore. So basically, I'm assuming they went into the trade discussions to get Marshon Lattimore from the Saints with a certain price, and then the Saints wanted a little bit more, and then Adam Peters and company were like, well, man, we do have these extra draft picks laying around. Let's just go ahead and do it. It's well worth it. So maybe we ended up having to give away a little bit more for Lattimore than they wanted to originally, but because of the previous moves that we made, Adam Peters said that they were more comfortable with going ahead and making that major move. He also said that they still feel really good about the 7 draft picks they do have, and they definitely should. Adam Peters also said that they still feel good with the 7 picks they have in next year's draft and didn't want to give up a high 3rd round pick in the draft. So basically, even though they ended up giving the Saints more than they, I guess, originally expected to give up going into the trade discussions for Marshon Lattimore, they set us like a certain limit. Like, we're not giving you anything higher than our own 3rd. We're not even going to give up the Miami Dolphins 3rd round pick that we got from the Eagles in the Jahan Dotson trade. I love the fact that he stood 10 toes down on that one. Similar to how teams tried to take advantage of us needing a left tackle in the draft and were charging us like just taxing us, just way overcharging us for us to potentially trade up to get a tackle in the late 1st or maybe somewhere in the 2nd round. Shouts out to Adam Peters for standing 10 toes down there and waiting until the 3rd round to get a franchise left tackle in Brandon Coleman. Every decision he's made home runs on them. It's absolutely insane when you really look back at it. But again, we went into the trade with the Saints. From what I'm hearing, this is just Rico logic, just trying to put together the pieces. We ended up paying more than what we expected, but he did set a limit. We're not giving you the Miami Dolphins 3rd round pick, so you got to settle for our 3rd round pick, and maybe we'll throw in a couple of more later round picks, but that is it. Also, moving on, just to let let you know it's being reported, but this is from NFL rumors, so who knows if this is true or not. But apparently, the 49ers and the Commanders tried to trade for Patriots Kendrick Bourne, the wide receiver, but the deal just could not be made. I guess the Patriots wanted more than what we were willing to give them, and we just decided to just not do it. Shouts out to this Patriots reporter that has an article titled "Patriots Veteran Receiver Relieved to See Trade Deadline Pass." He said the Patriots veteran receiver knew that there was a possibility he would end up being moved before the trade deadline, but he's glad that he's staying and knows where he's going to be the rest of the season. That distraction is no longer weighing on his mind. Quote from Kendrick Bourne, "It feels good that I'm here, and that is where they want me." Bourne said on Wednesday, "Just now, I can really focus. You're always focused, but for it to be gone, it feels good," unquote. So that's the exact quote from him. I guess he preferred to stay with the Patriots than to come here. You know, whatever. It is what it is. Salute to you. You know, you can live with that decision all you want. But now, most importantly, from the Commander side of things, we of course have to realize that the Commanders may still not be satisfied with our current wide receiver room. That's all that tells me. The fact that they were trying to trade for receivers, the fact that we were in on Marquez Valdez-Scantling after he got cut by the Bills, they are clearly looking for a certain caliber of receiver that's not just available on somebody else's practice squad right now, or just sitting on the couch waiting to get a call right now, just any veteran free agent wide receiver that just happens to be available. They're looking for a certain caliber of guys that only is available on other teams' active rosters right now. We got to trade for these guys. They want a certain level of receiver, and there may not be much they can do this season about that, especially with the trade deadline gone. You would just have to hope somebody cuts somebody or puts them on a practice squad. I highly doubt that will happen. But I want you to basically keep that in mind, that even though this will not affect us 2024, I want you to think about the fact that in 2025, by the time we get to the offseason and we're talking about needs, even as dominant and as historically efficient as this offense has been, Adam Peters and company still want to upgrade that position group in the wide receiver room. So come free agency, expect us to be in on big names that we weren't willing to trade for, which would throw guys like T. Higgins back onto the table because we weren't willing to give up draft picks for him. But if we can sign him for free in free agency and all we got to do is pay him money, then maybe guys like that are back onto the table. And I would definitely go out to say that guys like T. Higgins will definitely get phone calls from the Commanders come free agency, because again, they still are not very comfortable with this receiver room right now. And don't forget the draft as well. We may draft a receiver higher in the draft and sooner in the draft than you think. So I just want to make sure y'all keep that in mind. So come March and April, remember that the Commanders were looking for a receiver. Even while this offense was historically great and efficient, they still were looking to add another receiver. So that should let you know that no matter how this season finishes, even if we win the Super Bowl, I don't want people assuming that they're just going to feel extremely comfortable with this wide receiver room and we're not going to go after some guys in free agency or higher in the draft than you expect, unless these other guys like Luke McCaffrey just develops into like a true wide receiver too, or something like that, then maybe. But so far from what I'm seeing, expect us to be big players in the receiver market come 2025 offseason. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, and still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Again, I'm trying to do at least 2-3 videos a day, so be on the lookout for another video definitely this evening. It will more than likely be an update on like the injuries for the Commanders, because we'll officially get the Thursday injury report. We'll have Dan Quinn speak after practice and things like that. We'll see if Marshon Lattimore is practicing yet, if he'll be possibly even be close to being available to play against the Steelers and things like that. So I will have y'all with that update later this evening. You already know, your one-stop shop for everything Commanders when it comes to the roster, coaches, front office, film sessions, game reviews, game previews, advanced stats, any moves that we make, practice and injury updates. I got y'all with everything, so make sure you stay tuned. And this is one of those channels where you just make sure you go back and check on StreetScores every now and then, because I more than likely uploaded another video since the last time you looked at my channel. So definitely make sure you still farm that like button on the way out. Of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in this video. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.